Hi, I'm Loecky. I'm an MBA student from STEMBA3, and today I will present about the Indonesia Just Energy Transition Partnership with a focus on the financing of the coal-fired power plants phase out. So without further ado, here are the four agenda points that I will deliver. The first one is about the overview of the Indonesia GETP itself, and then second one will be the phasing out of the coal-fired power plants, and in short, is CFPP that I will mention for the next in the whole presentation. And the third one will be the implication of the CFPP phase out, and the fourth one will be the financing of the CFPP phase out, and the last one will be the conclusion that I will deliver later on at the end of the slides of this presentation. Um, the first one, I will start with an overview of the Indonesia GETP. So, and here are, I'm summarizing the key aspects of the Indonesia GETP with the aim of transitioning our energy sector to cleaner energy source, because as we know that currently most of our energy supply comes from the non-renewable sources, and it emits a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, and it has to stop, not now, but it has to be stopped anyway, and we need to transition so that we gonna utilize more on the renewable energy, and that generates less or no emissions um, that can cause the climate crisis. The first one will be regarding the financial commitment. So in the GTP for Indonesia includes the significant financial package with the pledge amount to 20 billion US dollar over the next 3 to 5 years, and this funding is intended to support Indonesia energy transition, particularly in phasing out coal-fired power plants, and then scaling up renewable energy, and also improving energy efficiency. The second one is regarding the CFPP phase out, and this is one of the primary goals of the GTP is to accelerate the retirement of the CFPP in Indonesia. And Indonesia itself is known as one of the largest consumers of the coal, and this transition is crucial for meeting global climate goals. As I mentioned earlier, that right now we are facing the climate crisis. And then the third one will be the renewable energy expansion, and then economic and social consideration, and also the last one will be the international collaboration. And move on to the next one. That's the overview, and the next we're gonna talk I'm gonna explain about the CFPP phase out. um, so on why we need the phasing out of the CFPP is because we need to shift our electricity supply from non-renewable plants to 500 gigawatts of renewable energy to meet rising demand in 2050, because the number of people will also be increased, and to meet those demands, the electricity supply demands in 2050, we need to transition away from coal, because if not, then our emission will only be increased, and it's not a good news for our earth, and also for the life of our generation, and also the next generation in our earth. Um, in the 2050, renewable energy will be dominated our electricity supply sources, and it is estimated that the solar PV will be the dominant source of the renewable energy one. However, it will require a substantial storage capacity to ensure a balanced and reliable power supply, because as we know that solar PV will take the energy from the solar during the day, but then during the night it will get no solar exposure because it's night. So that's why we need to store the energy during the day and use it during the night, and ensuring that the balance on on meeting the demands or the peak during the day is also important on this one. And to meet the demand in 2050, 2030 will be the transition period, will be the crucial period for the coal plants after reaching its peak and being replaced by the renewables, as demand increase to 1,400 trillion watt hour in this one. So the transition of the clean energy source pushed the need of the CFPP phase out or early retirement. So the GETP has developed three scenarios, like the business as usual, and then the conservative and also the aggressive one, to about the phasing out of this CFPP. And one of the important point in here is that shortening the lifespan or reducing the usage of the CFPP is essential to aligning with the objective of the GTP. But the question will be then, like what I mentioned earlier regarding the financial pledge or commitment for this GTP, is that whether the funding is enough to support this transitioning of the our energy sector, and which one of it could be the pushing the need of the CFPP phase out or early retirement. And this one is I'm gonna explain about the CFPP retirement schedule, and from the expert modeling that I read from the source shown in the slide. So a plan by plan retirement schedule was developed by combining the national coal power generation constraint from the GCAM with a ranking of coal plants, and prioritizing those with the lowest utilization level. And on this one, a minimum guaranteed lifetime of 20 years was applied, except for the low-hanging fruit plants that may retire earlier because it's been built for ages ago. And as a result of this modeling, some plants will retire later than initially planned, but still meet the national target. As shown here, we'll see that the number of plants need to be retired for each of the stakeholder, either by the PLN or the IPP, for each of decades, the next decades, like from 2020 to 2030, 2030 to 2040, and 2040 to 2050 or 2045. So on this one, the average plant utilization of the CFPP is expected to decrease from 5,900 or around 600 in 2022 to 1,000, around 1,000 hours in 2040. which reflecting the transition, how we're gonna transition away from the coal. And as of May 2022, Indonesia operates 86 CFPP with a total capacity of 40.2 gigawatt. And this is primarily owned by the PLN and also the IPP, or the independent power producer. So yeah, despite 75% of these plants being built after 2005, capacity is set to grow further with 19 new projects with a capacity of 10.8 gigawatts under construction, and additional projects is in early development. And most of these plants are concentrated in Java, Bali, and Sumatra region. Um, However, the retirement of the CFPP plant that was modeled was intended to ensure that it is evenly distributed across different regions to avoid the concentration in any specific area. So, what I mentioned earlier regarding the increase in Java, Bali, and Sumatra, this region will then face a potential overcapacity issues with a margin up to 60%. And to address this, canceling projects that haven't started construction or signed the contracts, along with the retiring older plants, the one that being built before 2000, is crucial. And in contrast, the Kalimantan, Sulawesi, Maluku, and Papua electricity supply system, and then we'll see a phase decline in CFPP capacity, and aiming to for a complete phase out between 2040 to 2045. The third one, I'm gonna explain about the implication of the CFPP phase out. So this one, the implication of the CFPP phase out or early retirement. Um, Again, this is a comprehensive framework being developed by the expert, shown in the source on the slide, where they divided the implication into three aspects. The first one is economic, social, and environment, and they try to quantify the implication of this just transition of the CFPP phase out. So this framework considering benefit will also considering benefit like the improved air quality and also public health costs, and then also costs such as the stranded assets and the commissioning of the CFPP, and also the policy and financial needs to mitigate the negative effect, including the compensation and the fiscal support for the coal job losses of the CFPP early retirement. So on the cost implication itself of the CFPP phase out, because the framework has economic, social, and environment. This is new because it also includes the externality costs that were previously overlooked in our system, in our energy system. And one of the example of why it's important to quantify the externalities is because on the health cost itself, it could result in a saving of the $61 billion if we retiring the CFPP in Indonesia. The cost of the retiring of the CFPP itself around 40.6 billion through 2030 and $27.5 billion through 2050. Um, it's quite high, and it's more than what the Indonesia GETP financial commitment could provide. However, the total savings from avoided coal subsidies and public health costs are significantly higher than that. So it could be like a subsidy or a cross subsidy on doing this, basically, because the benefit is greater than the cost that was needed to phasing out or to early retirement the CFPP. And yeah, the accelerated coal phase out is economically and socially beneficial, with the avoided cost being 2 to 4 times greater than the cost of the retirement, including the stranded assets and employment transition. Um, However, on achieving the economic growth and just energy transition requires a set of public financing and policy reforms. And it is needed like the combination of public financing and policy reforms will accelerate coal plant retirement and limit its operation. In Indonesia itself, just like what I mentioned earlier, that it's either owned by the state-owned um, electricity utility or PLN, or by the IPPs. And this one, like how um, shown the breakdown of the needed uh, capacity, or no, the capacity of each of the stakeholder. As for the public financing and policy reforms, an ambitious energy transition is expected to lower coal plant owner earnings and decrease the value of their asset. And this will then I will discuss on the next slide, because it's quite interesting on how the expert can model the um, the the losses that needs to be addressed by the coal plant owners, and how we need to think about to to cover these losses of the coal plant owners, so that they want to phase out their, or to do the early retirement of their CFPP. So from the book that I read, there are three possible approach to estimate the financial implication of the CFPP early retirement. And on this one, we're gonna focus on two methodology. The first one is about the foregone operating profit, and the second one is on the capital recovery. Um, on the foregone operating profit, it is the estimate of the net operating profit represent the earnings of the unit would have continued to generate between its early retirement and end of its technical lifetime, covering upfront capital costs and providing a return on the investment. As for the capital recovery, it is the estimate of the net operating profit needed each year between a unit's early retirement and end of the uh, its technical lifetime is calculated to ensure recovery of the upfront capital investment, thereby avoiding the loss. The third one is the third methodology is book value, but I'm not gonna talk more on this one, because I think focusing on the two is quite interesting to see the implication. So aligning with the GTP scenario, if we use the the foregone operating profit, we'll see around 60 billion USD of the foregone operating profit. And on this one, an incentive scheme supported by the public and private financing mechanism should help offset the foregone operating profit for power plant owners. Um, And this modeling calculation using a 5% discount every year. That's why like the 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 losses or the foregone operating profit is around 60 billion USD on this one. And if we break it down, so it's not like cumulative 60 billion, but yeah, it's cumulative around 60 billion. But if we break down by year, it's around 31 billion in 2040 and around 60 or 57 billion by 2050. The second one regarding the capital recovery, the capital recovery needed to align with the GATP scenario is around 50 billion, slightly lower than the foregone operating profit approach or methodology, but still like incentive of the early retirement of the CFPP should give at least initial capital expenses for the owner, both for the PLN or for the IPPs. So with these two methodology, we see that it's higher actually than the financial commitment that the GETP could provide at 20 billion USD. And that's why like it's really important to think how the private and also the public financing is needed to ensure that the Indonesia GDP is really happening in the near future. So the next one regarding the financing of the CFPP, we see the historical financing context in Indonesia first, where since 2017 there actually has been a noticeable shift in financing from coal to renewable energy. However, a bold and robust financing mechanism is essential to fully support the realization of the GDP targets by 2050. And in 2020, we see that the government of Indonesia introduced Omnibus Law, which among other provisions facilitate coal mining permit extension and also remove royalty obligation for downstream coal mining companies. This policy change made new investment in renewable energy actually less attractive. And to address this, Indonesia launched the Energy Transition Mechanism or ETM country platform, appointing PTSMI as the manager basically to prepare for the receiving funds to support the coal retirement. And at the G20 summit, Indonesia together with a group of other countries under the International Partners Group announced the GETP, which include 20 billion, just like what I mentioned earlier in the beginning of the presentation. So with this 20 billion provided by the Indonesia GETP, but we see that the financial that is needed to phasing out or to early retire the CFPP is higher 2 or 3 times than the available funding by the GTP. That's why it's need to share the burden of the potential losses is critical part of delivering this successful transition. That's why the PPP are viewed as potential solutions to share the burden of the potential losses, because in this one the PPP can go through the PTSMI, where the PTSMI could receive the funding from the international organization like DFI, development financing institution, for example, that can give the money to the PTSMI, and then PTSMI then make a cooperation agreement with the PLN, for example, or for the IPPs to early retire or phasing out their CFPP. So in conclusion, the Indonesia participation in the Just Energy Transition Partnership reflecting its commitment to transition from coal to renewable energy as part of the broader effort to meet the domestic and also the international climate goals. And the GTP itself, introduced during the COP26 and supported by the G7's International Partners Group, emphasize a just transition, ensuring that the shift to sustainable energy does not disproportionately impact vulnerable communities. That's why it's mentioned just energy transition. And Indonesia ambitious target such on the phasing out the coal-fired power plants by 2030, and then achieving 87% renewable energy mix by 2060 represent a significant step forward toward the decarbonizing the Indonesia energy sector. However, these goals are accompanied by substantial financial and also a logistical challenge. And one of the critical components of this transition is the phased retirement of the CFPP, particularly those in Java, with 16 plants totaling 5.5 gigawatt slated for early decommissioning. The projected costs range from 5 to 10 billion US dollar. And despite this effort, Indonesia coal capacity is still expected to grow, which is largely driven by the off-grid industrial facility and potentially leading to emissions that far exceed the GETP targets. This underscores the complexity of balancing economic growth and environmental responsibility, because the transition towards the renewable energy will require the substantial investment, particularly not just in phasing out the coal fired power plants, but also the baseload renewable energy source like the hydropower and geothermal power plants. And we see that we need to phase out the coal fire power plants, and then we also need to bridge the transition with the renewable energy one, and it is needed an estimated capital of the 85 to 100 billion by 2030. And yeah, this is what we need to think more on this GETP, because the GETP was introduced by the Westerners or by the developed country, while Indonesia is still a developing country. And for the developed country, they've been go through this phase on having a cheap energy source, and then right now they can move to the renewable energy one for the source, but then they put the burden to the developing countries that aim for the economic growth, but at the same time being asked to transition or not to enjoy the cheap energy source from the coal, which mostly from the coal. And that's why where is the just on this one, whether we gonna follow the what being asked, while at the same time the funding is available is not enough actually to help us to support Indonesia to transition, especially not all like all the key aspect of the Indonesia GDP, like focusing on the coal, phasing out the coal fire power plants. The 20 billion US dollar is not enough basically to cover this early retirement of the CFPP, and like the foregone operating profit is 60 billion US dollar, and for the capital recovery is around 50 billion, which is the 2.5 to 3 times than what the funding is available through the GETP. And from the uh, from the PLN people that I know, that I learned from during the guest lecture, the 20 billion US dollar, actually the PLN already tapped into that source of funding. So it's like basically starting from zero. If PLN wants to transition the CFPP to the renewable one. And one of the proposed suggestion on this one is to do the carbon tax that has been developed by the Indonesia government, that needs to be enforced actually on the coal generation. And it is estimates that it could generate an additional of the 60 to 80 billion in government revenue, and providing a potential funding source to mitigate these losses. And also again, from the developed country, they should give a bigger financial commitment to support the Indonesia GDP on transitioning, not just transitioning from the coal-fired power plants early retirement, but also to help to build or to establish the renewable energy power plants that could meet the demands by 2050. So yeah, again, last word, like ultimately the success of Indonesia energy transition will really depend on the collaborative approach involving the government, private sector, and also the international partner, and sharing the financial burden and leveraging innovative funding mechanism such as the carbon taxes and also the international climate finance commitment will be essential to overcoming the challenge associated with this phasing out the coal-fired power plants. So I think that's it on the Indonesia GTP, focusing on the financing of the coal fire power plants phase out. I hope you enjoy my presentation. Thank you.